Well, certainly a lot of people are talking about it, that research that came out showing the potential for mega floods and our California ArkStorm events can be more powerful and more impactful heading into the future due to climate change. First, let's talk about what a mega flood event looks like and that ArkStorm event going back to December 1861 to 1862 in the following year. You had multiple atmospheric river storms impacting California, the ground becoming more saturated, leading to tremendous catastrophic flooding. Much of interior Northern California looking a bit more like a lake with widespread flooding in the Bay Area. Now, imagine if that same pattern was transported to the current year or the next 25 years in a warming climate. So that's what the research, the ArkStorm 2.0 project was looking at, the historical context of what we can see in a high impact event versus one now in a climate change present and future. We have an increase in atmospheric moisture, which powers up higher rain rates and higher snow levels. So for the Sierra, the report found that there could be a 200 to 400% increase in Sierra runoff in that warmer climate. So future ArkStorms or mega flood events will likely have a much larger impact across California versus what we saw in 1862. So for the Bay Area, I think we've been kind of living through some of these changes with the more frequent droughts, drier and hotter spring to fall periods. We've been noticing the longer fire seasons. But at the same time, even with persistent drought, high impact, fewer storms that do include some very strong atmospheric rivers at times. And we saw a good example of this. Just go back to last October. This was a storm that set a record for atmospheric water vapor. Precipitable water content values over San Francisco were a record high for an October storm. It was the strongest atmospheric river storm we'd seen since January of 2017. And this one storm brought in almost 8% of the state's water budget in the span of about 3 days' time. And for the North Bay, Marin County picking up almost a foot of rainfall, which did help to recharge a lot of reservoirs in that area. But can you imagine if this storm had arrived, not in October, but let's say December and January with saturated soils, we would have seen a lot more widespread flooding than we saw last October. So this does play into the climate change scenario of more frequent droughts, fewer, but potentially more intense atmospheric river storms, where the risk of runoff flooding is higher. And you can see the trend here with the drought monitor last 10 years. Droughts becoming more persistent as those climate change models were suggesting would happen, ongoing across California with increasing drought frequency and intensity. And notice the precipitation whiplash we saw last year. For places like Sacramento, it was the record driest stretch of 212 days without measurable rain. And then within just 1 week, you had a record for 24-hour rainfall occurring with that October storm. So that does play into this concept of drier spring, summer, and fall, but these fewer but higher impact storms in that warming climate that have access to more moisture and the potential for more flooding, something we could likely see in our lifetime playing out within just the last year and what we'll likely see more of moving forward into the future.